recently came across an article asking why is it that some, for example, Jamaican teachers are not having their contracts renewed overseas. And now that I have the time, I thought that I would just shed a light, and to give a reason as to perhaps why, some people are not having their contracts renewed, etc. First I must say, this more so happened in the USA than in the UK. But still, what I can say is that the education system in first world country is slightly different to what you would do, for example, in Jamaica. And I would go as far as to say the people who do not have their contracts renewed, it is a sticky situation, because if you realize sometimes you're given initially like a 2-year contract, etc. Now, everybody should know that the discipline in the different countries are different. Well, in the past, because I can see that Jamaica is fast, the discipline is sort of catching up with what some people experience in first world country. So I would go on to say that the people who do not have their contracts renewed are usually the people who struggle to adapt to their new environment. For example, there are certain things that you will find different, and for example, perhaps the Jamaican teacher is not accustomed to it. In some areas, first of all, I should say in, for example, primary school, whereas in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, the teacher will know that, okay, school starts at this time, school dismisses at that time, parents will either come get their children, or it is pretty common for children to make their way home on their own. In the first world country, it's totally different. In the morning, a parent has to drop off their child until they get to grade 6, if I'm not mistaken. So how it works, the parent drops off his or her child in the morning, and they have to collect them as well. So in, for example, Jamaica, the education system, like the gate is open, so children just make their way home. The gates are kept locked in a first world country. So the child remains in the care of the teacher until the parents come individually to collect their child. If a child is not collected, is collected late too many times, then of course the school has the right to get social services involved, because that could mean that you do not have proper arrangements in place for your child. So that is one. The system is different. Another thing is that, with probably people struggling to adjust, another thing is that, and I should hasten before I even move on to the other point, I should say as well, I've heard of a case in America where I think the teacher, Jamaican teacher, left their child, or could be children, alone at home for X number of hours. In a first world country, that is not allowed. Children should not be left on their own. So if the authority becomes aware of it, then you can get into trouble. There are times when calls can be made, how some people get caught out is that people call the house phone. The child picks up, for example, and they could ask, may I speak to mommy? May I speak to daddy? And that children are so innocent. So they will obviously say, oh, mommy and daddy, mommy is not home, etc. Once they start talking, then the person at the end of the other line could ask follow-up questions. And children are very innocent, so they will give answers and stuff. And all that person at the end of the other phone needs to do is to call social services, and they will come, and the parents could get into trouble. You could go as far as to get your children taken off you. So it's a very serious thing, right? So if you come into a first world country and you're not accustomed to that, or you struggle to find proper, I would say, childcare, because you know that most people are out trying to make things better, so they are working, and perhaps the money that they are working is not enough to take care, to employ the services of, like a babysitter. And I should say as well, in the first world country, babysitting, it's childcare, it is expensive. So that's something to think about as well. Okay, another thing is that the way, for example, that some teachers in Jamaica, for example, speak to children, shouting, speaking out of, certain type of words, that's not allowed in the first world country, right? So you should never appear to have lost your temper in any way. And this is something that I'm going to say because I was caught out. The word, when you say, like, for example, in Jamaica, I don't know, because I know that Jamaica has changed now. But I know that teachers used to tell children when they are noisy, you say, shut up, shut up. In, for example, the UK, where I'm residing, shut up it's a negative, very negative word for you to use to children, for you to use in your class. So like I've said, I was caught out because I didn't realize when I came to the UK at first that was, a negative terminology. So instead, you're expected to say things like, calm down, be quiet, right? So that's another way that, if the teacher fails to sort of adapt to their new environment, to the culture, then of course, that could be negative. And you have to understand that if you don't have like a good rapport with the people who you are working with, then of course, you could find it hard for you to get your work permit renewed. And I'm talking about teachers who come over as teachers into the system fresh, teachers who, were not given a little opportunity to sort of, I would say, adjust before they are placed before a class. So yes, like I've said, some of the terminologies, you have to know them, and you have to be wary of how you speak to students as well. What is very big as well is classroom management. So although you find that, okay, you will always have, children will always be children. What we call naughty in first world country, it is just seen as children being children. So what does that mean? It means that you need to find certain strategies. You need to find a way to gain control of your class and to actually help them to excel. So you'll realize that if you are not able to control your class, that is a negative. You will struggle to get your work permit renewed. So classroom management is one. Another one is if students do not excel, because students are expected to progress. So if the students are not progressing in your class, that is a negative. And you can understand why, they would not renew your work permit. So, these are some of the things when you see that, you'll find that, okay, a teacher got their 2-year work permit, but after the 2 years, for example, you realize that they find their way home after. For some people, it's like a mutual understanding in that they have come to the first world country. What they thought, what they expected was something totally different. So the culture shock as well could see the teacher not wanting to renew their contract as well. So it worked both ways. You could have the head teacher not wanting to renew the contract, because remember, once your permit expires, you need for that head teacher to do what is necessary to renew your contract. So if it is not renewed, then you're left without a work permit, and there is no alternative but for you to find your way, back into the system. So yes, culture shock is another thing. A lot of people, and I'm not just talking about teachers, nurses, everybody will tell you that yes, you need to adapt to your new culture, and you'll find that things becomes much easier for you, the easier or the quicker that you adapt to your new environment. And you have to realize that it's not just in the classroom, the new environment is even in society. So you have to quickly adapt. So the person who will struggle is the person who is not willing to adapt, because some people are strong on their beliefs, the things that they believe in. Whereas when you come into a first world country, you will realize that there are certain things that is even against your belief, where you must, adjust to actually continue working in the position that you are working in. So you have to remember that technology is there, the world is advancing as well. So if you hold fast and hard on certain beliefs, then of course you are going to struggle as well. You will realize as well that in Jamaica, children in a classroom are almost given the same lesson. Now, in first world countries, you have what is known as, like, what would you call special needs. So what you find out is that very soon certain assessments are done. Once certain traits are noticed in students, then particular assessments are done. And if they require special type of education, then that is put into place. Now, for a teacher coming from Jamaica, and remember, I'm talking about, I migrated years ago. So it could be that the education system in Jamaica has changed, where the teacher, even though it's one class, say for example, a class of 20 per se, you'll find that you have 5 students with different requiring, certain type of learning support. You are expected to plan your lesson in such a way that it caters to the different needs of the students in one class. So you will find that some teachers struggle to actually, find their footing, and that is where the problem comes in as well. So it's just a matter of, cultural differences. So for example, in Jamaica, that parents buy like the textbook, etc. They buy the textbook, they buy like the the exercise books, etc. In a first world country, in the UK, for example, I know that in primary schools, the parents do not buy like pencils, books, or anything, because the school provides all of those. However, all of those are kept at school. So the writing book, every day the student goes in, I should point out that there's a different what we call exercise book for every subject that they do. So in the mornings, the children, are given their books based on what subject they are done. So all of the books are kept in the classroom, and they complete, say for example, if it's maths they're doing in the morning, they do their maths. Afterwards, they put away those books in the designated area. Then they will get out, if it's Spanish, whatever, English, they'll get out the books, put them away. So once they finish with what's one subject, they put away the book and they get out another book. So if they need any type of resources that they need. So if, for example, there's going to be pens provided, there's going to be, what would I say, sharpener provided, pencils provided, all the resources. The only thing is that you do not take them home. Now, I am going to give one suggestion, because my children came to the UK really, really young. So I got a chance to sort of adapt a bit. So when I first realized that the children were not allowed to take home the books. So you could question, how do you know if your child is doing well, etc.? That is where you come in, that is where homework comes in, and that is where parents' evening come in. You must go in. So back to how I overcame, that I would say it's not really a problem, but how I ensured that I was aware of what my children were doing. All the books that they would have been using in Jamaica at the different stages, what I did was that I got somebody to purchase them, family members to purchase them in Jamaica and send them to me in the UK. So those books, I keep them at home. And what I do is that I would teach them in the evenings, I would teach them in the evenings so that I have an idea of what they were up to. Mind you, I should say as well that the curriculum is slightly different. A lot of teachers, especially like for the maths, the methods that we use in the Caribbean that we use in Jamaica, the math methods are different. And that is where some parents struggle. Because I myself, because I learned the methods a different way, what I was able to do to sort of bridge the gap was that I taught my children at home my method, my Jamaican method, and when they go to school, they learn a different method. So they actually had two different methods of working it out. And I also took the time out to sort of learn the UK method of working out some of the maths, etc. So I can give you a joke. When one of my children was in primary school, the teacher could not understand. You know what? The child was doing 1, 2, 3. You know how you count in Jamaica? How you use your fingers to count? They don't really do it over here. So they noticed, and I explained it to the teacher, what was going on and stuff. I am going to say as well, parents, don't be embarrassed if you don't know the methods that they use in the first world countries. You have to be confident enough to say to the teacher, yeah, I don't quite understand it that way, but this is how I understand it. In some cases, depending on who your child's teacher is, they will give you that support. Sometimes they will actually give you one of the textbooks that they use over here to borrow. Yes, you will return it at the end of the year. And you take your time to learn the methods and stuff. Some people will say that they can't bother with that. Well, there is another way. If you have a lot of money, you can employ the services of a private tutor. So I know that some people have actually done it that way as well. So going back, yes, what happened is that you will have some teachers, going back to, how I started. Some teachers will tell you that perhaps they struggle, they find the work harder in that you have so many different subjects and you go through them almost daily, right? So you have a lot of work to mark, things are different, and of course you have to ensure that you cover certain things because at the end of the term you have the what would you call the school report, you have parents evening, etc. And on top of that, you must be available to communicate with the parents, and I'm talking about primary school, right? So that is where the primary school comes in. Of course, when you get to like the secondary school, or in my situation, because I teach at a college, it is different. It is much different. I find it easier, manageable. So just to say that that's probably what happened in some cases when you find out that some teachers, after their 1 year or 2 years, they actually return to Jamaica. It's not that they are bad people, it's just that the system is different. And remember as well that if the head teacher is not impressed, right, then of course they will not renew your contract. In some cases, some people are fortunate enough to move on to a different school where their contract is renewed. I hope that this helps, and to say that, yeah, things are a bit different and this is really what is happening. Thank you for watching this video, Destiny family. Peace.